Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we tear through complex source material to find, the fastest path to genuine insight. Today, we're doing a deep dive that promises to give you some instant authenticity in conversation. We are unlocking modern Brazilian Portuguese.
That is absolutely the mission, and our guide for this is John Whitlam's Modern Brazilian Portuguese Grammar. What's so great about this source is that it doesn't just give you the old building blocks, nouns, verbs. It organizes everything by function.
By function, what do you mean?
Like expressing certainty or establishing identity. It's built around what you actually want to do with the language.
Right, and we're not just going to reread the book for you. We've pulled out the most critical, high-impact stuff, the shortcuts that let a learner sound less like they're reading from a phrase book.
And more like someone who actually speaks the language, especially how it's used right now, today.
That focus on contemporary usage feels like everything.
It is. I mean, the whole point of this deep dive is to get into that huge, sometimes confusing gap between the formal written language and the super dynamic, efficient way people actually speak, whether you're in São Paulo or, on a beach in Rio.
Okay, that gap is where we're going to find our shortcuts. So let's start with what we're calling the instant authenticity markers. The little phonetic things that immediately tell a native speaker if you've really caught the rhythm of the language.
Exactly. The very first thing is phonetics, specifically how you pronounce the letters S and Z.
When they're at the end of a syllable.
Right, exactly. In places like Rio de Janeiro, this is super famous, a syllable final S or Z, it just transforms. It stops being that English sound and becomes more of a she sound, like in the word shoe.
Or that Z sound, like envision.
Right. So a word like dua, which is two, becomes more like doish.
That is such a characteristic sound. And the source mentioned something interesting about that it used to be seen as like the gold standard.
It was, yeah. The most desirable pronunciation historically. Now it's seen as more of a regional thing. But it's still a really powerful marker. It tells people where you might have learned your Portuguese.
Okay, so that's a big one. But maybe there's an even more widespread one.
Oh, definitely. The one that gets almost everyone involves the letter T.
Yeah.
This is crucial.
Right, this is where it gets really counterintuitive for an English speaker. We're talking about when T comes right before the vowel.
Before an I or before an unstressed final E. That's the key. Instead of that hard T sound we expect, it softens into a chi sound, like at the start of the word chip.
And the classic example is tia for ant.
Exactly. It's not tia, it's chia. It's a tiny detail, but it's everywhere. And getting that sound right just makes you sound instantly less foreign.
So once we get the sounds down, we have to look at the structure of the words themselves. And that's where gender can trip people up.
Yeah. So the basic rule is pretty simple. And honestly, it works most of the time. Nouns ending in O are masculine, and nouns ending in O are feminine. That's your starting point.
But, and this is a big but, some of the most common words you use every day are the exceptions. You just have to memorize them. Like, I'm thinking of feminine nouns that end in O, like mão, which is hand.
Or tribo, tribe. But I think the ones you run into even more are the masculine nouns that end in AO. You absolutely have to know these. Things like o problema, the problem.
O mapa.
The map, yeah. O dia, the day. Even o samba. These are non-negotiables. You have to learn them.
Sticking with structure, there's this really fascinating thing the source points out about plural items. Things that are always plural in English, like scissors or pans.
Right, this is a great example of the language being efficient. English says pair of scissors, plural, but Portuguese just simplifies it. It uses the singular. So uma tesoura, a single scissors.
Okay, but it gets even stranger in casual speech, right? With things like shoes or glasses.
It gets much stranger, yeah. It's so common. So grammatically, shoes is sapatos, plural. But informally, you'll often just hear someone say sapato, a shoe, and they mean a pair of shoes.
And the same for glasses.
The same for glasses. You will absolutely hear oculos, singular for a pair of glasses, even though it's technically incorrect. It just shows that the language is prioritizing context over, strict grammatical rules. Yeah. If the meaning is obvious, it simplifies.
That instinct to streamline things. That brings us perfectly to maybe the biggest split between the textbook and the street. Personal pronouns. If you can master this, you're so much closer to real fluency.
This is truly where the modern language has simplified itself. Let's start with the word you. In spoken Brazilian Portuguese, you have você for the singular you and vocês for the plural you.
And the big shortcut here is how the verbs work.
It's a huge shortcut. Both of them use third-person verbs, which means you basically get to ignore the old second-person forms like to. It simplifies conjugation so much.
So most of the time, you're just living in that third-person verb world.
Almost all the time. And even if you're speaking formally to, say, an older person, you use o señor or a señora. And guess what? They also use third-person verbs. It's third-person dominance all the way.
That is such a huge weight off a learner's shoulders. Okay, so what about we? Textbooks always push nos.
They do, but in a casual chat, nos can sound a little stiff, almost formal.
So what's the real-world alternative?
The real shortcut is a gente. It literally translates to the people, but it's used everywhere to mean we.
And that's the key to sounding natural. But it comes with a really weird grammatical catch. One that's easy to miss.
It's a very important catch. Okay, so a gente is technically a singular phrase, right? The people. So it takes a singular verb. That part makes sense.
Okay.
But here's the twist. Any adjectives that go with it have to be masculine singular, always. It doesn't matter who is in the group.
Okay, you have to give us an example. That is not intuitive at all.
Not at all. Let's say you have a group of women, and they're tired. They want to say, we are tired. They're not going to use the feminine plural cansadas. Because they're using a gente, they have to say, a gente está cansada.
Cansado. Singular, masculine, even for a group of all women.
Exactly. The grammar of the phrase a gente completely overrides the actual gender of the people speaking. It's a wild rule, but it's fundamental.
Wow. Okay. Now, for what might be the single most important split for just, day-to-day conversation, where you put object pronouns.
This is the game changer. I mean, the rules for pronouns like me, te, nos, they're completely different in writing versus in speech.
So what's the written rule? The formal one?
The written rule, the one from the grammar book, says you absolutely cannot start a sentence with one of these little unstressed pronouns.
So formally, you couldn't just say me a Jude for help me. You'd have to move it.
You'd have to rearrange it, yeah. That's the classical rule. But the spoken rule, the real-life shortcut, it just flips that on its head.
Oh, so...
In conversation, there are zero restrictions. And in fact, people always put those pronouns at the front before the main verb.
So in real life, you would say te veo mañana for I'll see you tomorrow.
You'd always say that. It's so dominant that if you hear a Brazilian put the pronoun after the verb, like vejo de, you know immediately that they're either being incredibly formal or they're actually from Portugal. For Brazil, you have to master the front load.
Okay, let's switch gears to some essential verbs. The ones that define existence, states, emotion. Let's talk ser, estar, and ficar.
Right, so we should do a quick recap of the two to-be verbs. Ser is for your inherent qualities, permanent things. O verão é quente, summer is hot. That's a fundamental truth.
And estar is for temporary states.
Temporary states or locations.
Yeah.
Estou pronto para ser, I am ready to go out. It's how you are right now.
That distinction seems clear, but I feel like it's in the application where people get confused.
It's all in the description. Okay, take the word bonito, handsome. If you say, ele é bonito, you mean he is, in general, a handsome person. It's part of who he is.
An inherent quality.
Right, but if you say, ele está bonito, you mean he looks handsome today. Maybe it's the new suit or a haircut. It's a temporary state of looking good.
That makes it so much clearer. So where ser and estar define a state, the third verb, ficar, is all about the change.
Ficar is your verb for transition, forgetting or becoming something. If someone's mood changes, you use ficar. Ele ficou furioso comigo. He got furious with me. It's all about that process of changing from one state to another.
And it has that really useful idiomatic structure for internal feelings.
Oh, yeah. Ficar com plus a noun. It means you are getting a sensation. So you don't have hunger. You ficar com fome, you get hungry. Or you ficar com sono, you get sleepy. It describes acquiring that state. It's super common.
Okay, let's talk about opinions. The source points to achar as the go-to verb for to think, as in having an opinion. So that gives you the basics, right? Acho que sim, I think so. Acho que no, I don't think so.
Those are essential, absolutely. But here is a really subtle tip to sound truly native. When you're giving a first impression of something, a new movie, a new meal, that haircut we talked about, you should use the past tense of achar, the preterite.
Wait, the past tense. What? If I'm looking at it right now in English, I'd say, I think it looks great. Present tense.
I know, it's weird. But in Portuguese, the idea is that the impression was formed a moment ago in the past, the instant you saw it. So you're referring to that specific moment of finding it lovely. You have to say, achai lindo o seu cabelo assim. Literally, I found your hair lovely like that.
And if I use the present tense, acho.
It sounds a bit weak, a little hesitant, like you're still making up your mind. Using the past tense, achai is firm. It's a real immediate reaction.
That is exactly the kind of nuance that makes all the difference. Okay, finally, let's just briefly touch on the two main past tenses. Preterite versus imperfect.
The preterite is your storyteller. It's for completed, one-and-done actions in the past. It moves the plot forward. Jante y fui para cama. I had dinner and I went to bed. Boom, boom. A sequence of events.
And the imperfect is more like scene setting.
Exactly. It's for background description or for habitual actions, what you used to do. You falava, I used to speak, or I was speaking. It paints the backdrop for when the predatory actions happened.
So to wrap this all up, what's the big takeaway? It seems like fluency is all about understanding that split. The split between the formal, rigid written rules
And the super efficient, streamlined spoken language.
a spoken language that favors speed and context over everything else.
Absolutely. The shortcuts we talked about, the sound changes, the dominance of você and agente, putting those pronouns at the front. That's the fastest way to sound authentic.
And speaking of efficiency, there's one last shortcut that kind of takes this idea to the extreme.
Yeah.
The idea of just leaving words out.
Yes. Pronoun omission. This is a beautiful, context-heavy feature of the language. When you're talking about a thing that's already been mentioned, what English would call it or them, colloquial Brazilian Portuguese, often just drops it. It's not translated at all.
So if we're talking about a movie and I want to say I loved it, I don't need the it.
You don't. You just say adoré, I loved. The listener knows from the context you're talking about the movie, or I saw it twice. You'd say assisti duas vezes, I watched twice. The it is just understood. It's like a grammatical trust fall between speakers.
This whole deep dive has been about seeing the language as this system that's just optimized for speed. Dropping the second person, dropping plural agreement with agente, and now dropping object pronouns completely.
It is a language that really, really rewards you for understanding the context.
So what does this all mean for you? We talked a lot about the key verbs ser, estar, and ficar for defining states of being. But if the language is always pushing for ultimate efficiency, how might a native speaker simplify even that? Is there one single super versatile verb that, in really informal speech, sometimes replaces all three? That's what we want you to explore. Go find the ultimate shortcut.